Good evening. This is Hot Nights Hot Lead, a Hunter the Reckoning Chronicle. Tonight we will be doing a solo session with Jamie, who is playing the character of Roy Sterling. When we last left Roy, he and his friends, Vandal, Becky, and Graham, were investigating a bed and breakfast in Micanopy, Florida. The mansion, as it were, turned out to be infested with rots. Zombies shambling around and trying to murder everything in their path. While our hunters were successful in routing them, along with the aid of a pack of werewolves, Roy decided to scout ahead and see if he could find out where the rots were escaping to. On his recon mission, he was sadly struck in the back of the head and knocked unconscious. When he awoke, he was strapped to a chair, duct tape over his mouth, and seated in front of a television. The television turned on, and text appeared on the screen asking him questions about himself, his friends, and their intentions in Florida. Roy refused to answer any of the questions from the television, and every time he remained silent, I should probably back up and say there were buttons affixed to the armrests of Roy's chair, one for yes, one for no, as obviously his mouth was duct taped. When Roy refused to answer yes or no to any question, he would be given an electric shock. He was questioned, he would refuse to answer, and he was shocked over and over and over again, until finally Roy lost consciousness. And we open with him opening his eyes for the first time since that night. And I will now turn it over to Jamie.
We see Roy waking up alone in the hospital with just a night nurse there. It's a short wakefulness, just enough time to register that he's in the hospital before he falls asleep again, dreaming of questions directed through a TV screen and a cold, burning feeling ripping across his nerves every time he refused to answer. It's not a restful sleep. In the morning, he meets with his attending doctor, who fills him in on his condition. Second and third degree burns, there will be scars. It looks like electrocution. No nerve damage, though. There should have been nerve damage. He's been very lucky. Or he suspects he probably had some help while he was out. And then the big one, his larynx, surgically removed. Even if he had his voice, he'd still be speechless. The police have questions, of course, but he knows enough not to tell them the whole story. So he tells them just enough and claims a lack of memory for the rest. Part of him wishes he could tell them everything, but that would only put them in danger as well. They thank him and tell him they'll get in contact if they find out anything more. He thanks them as well. Around lunchtime, Travis arrives, bringing the dogs with him, and Roy has his memory filled in, learning about the events at the protest and the wolves, about Rena's help and Becky leaving and the others going home. That damn Hall & Oates song. He thanks Travis for looking after his dogs and his friends, and Travis wishes him well, but he has other things he has to do, places he needs to be. They part ways. Then it's 5 days later, and Roy is sitting in his kitchen, back home in Atlanta, watching the dogs in the backyard. Rick and Ben yanking a piece of rope back and forth while Max lays in the grass in the sun, watching the others but not joining in. Roy's turning a pair of knives over in his hands. Then we see Roy at the hardware store making purchases. Tools, screws, bolts, locks, bars. Over the next couple of weeks, his home grows from an unassuming house into the kind of barred-windowed, multiple-locked place one might find in the bad part of town. Roy slides a deadbolt into place and sits on his couch, a shotgun across his lap, waiting. But no one comes. And then it's another day, early in the morning, and the doorbell rings. When Roy answers it, it's Hank and his family. It's been almost a month, and their concern is finally won out over their desire to give him space and time to recover. Roy has the thick stubble of a growing beard and bags under his eyes from sleepless nights. A shotgun is leaned against the wall by the door. Hank tells his wife to wait in the car while he talks with Roy. Then we see Roy sitting in church with Hank and his family, shaved and showered and cleaned up, dressed in a suit and tie. The minister drones on, and he's not paying much attention until they come to the reading. It's from Romans. Can anything ever separate us from Christ's love? Does it mean he no longer loves us if we have trouble or calamity, or are persecuted, or hungry, or destitute, or in danger, or threatened with death? As the scriptures say, for your sake we are killed every day, we are being slaughtered like sheep. No, despite all these things, overwhelming victories is ours through Christ, who loved us. And I'm convinced that nothing can ever separate us from God's love. Neither death, nor life, nor angels, nor demons, neither our fears for today, nor our worries about tomorrow, not even the powers of hell can separate us from God's love. No power in the sky above or in the earth below, indeed nothing in all creation will ever be able to separate us from the love of God that is revealed in Christ Jesus our Lord. Roy furrows his brow in thought and reflection. And then it's later in the day, and Roy is standing over a gravestone, contemplating it, or maybe having a conversation in his mind. After a few minutes, he kisses his fingertips and touches it to the headstone before walking away. We see Rena sitting with Roy and talking, gesturing to her head and toward him, and then out vaguely elsewhere. He's attentive and focused. We see Roy and Hank at the shooting range, pistols in hand, firing at targets downrange. With every target, he gets a little more accurate. And we see the dogs running as a pack down the street, with Roy in a sweatshirt and sweatpants running along behind them, training. And then it's nighttime, and Roy is sending an email. It has a picture of his spare bedroom, with a pair of familiar knives lying on the nightstand. It just says, "You'll always have a home here when you're ready. Roy." We're in a familiar room again, with a table and chairs, a room Roy hasn't seen since the last time he left Atlanta. And Paul and Barry are talking, but Roy isn't looking at them. He's looking across the table at Vandal and Graham. He can see their fatigue, a weariness that goes deeper than the flesh. He furrows his brow in concern. And we see Roy sitting at Graham's bar, long after it's closed up for the evening, both of them holding glasses as Graham speaks. Roy listens, but there's nothing to say. They clink their glasses together. He wishes him well. Graham drinks, but Roy just turns the glass in his hands. We see Roy mailing a letter with a fake return address and using a public mailbox to the state prison. It's addressed to Trevor McNamara, and it's as compassionate and apologetic as he can make it without arousing too much suspicion if it's read by someone else. He's going to try to do more. And then we're in a clothing shop, and Roy is picking out new shirts with collars and high necks. And we see Roy opening Vandal's door with a spare key and stepping inside, taking a minute to survey the damage. Everything in the place is a mess, including the rockabilly passed out on the couch. He takes a breath through his nose and gets to work. Another email, this time while he's sitting on a chair in Vandal's house. The dogs are there now, and the place is clean again. Vandal's in his bed now. He's still not back, but it's progress. The email is summing up everything since he woke up. There's really no one else he can talk with about it, and even though she hasn't responded, it still helps. He doesn't pressure her to come home. He just keeps her in the loop, keeps her connected. He sends the email and closes the laptop, looking toward the back hallway and wondering, not for the first time, just who Molly is. And we're at the bus station, Roy shaking Rena's hand. She's done in Atlanta. She's been working to make the larger group's security and tech options better, but she's been getting visions and messages about elsewhere, and she has to go. He pulls his hand back, and she turns to Vandal to shake his. He's out of the house finally, though he still has a long road ahead. She smiles and climbs aboard, and the bus rolls away after a minute. Roy claps his hand on Vandal's shoulder, and they head back to the car. Rena looks out the window at them for a moment before the bus turns the corner, and she puts her earbuds in, turning her mind to other things.
Excellent. Okay, so I'm basically going to fast forward a little bit.
Okay.
You and Vandal go from the bus station back to Roy's house.
Okay.
Vandal gets a text on his phone And he looks at it for a second. He says, "Oh, hey man, I gotta take this in the other room. Is that cool?"
Roy nods.
Right. And then, oddly enough, Roy gets a ping on his laptop or whatever mobile device.
He's got a phone.
He's got a phone. Okay.
Yeah, he's got a smartphone.
It occurs to me with all these names that we've dropped, I'm going to have to probably do a session that explains who all of these people are. But that's for a project for another time.
Or you get tour or something.
Yeah, for real. Roy gets a text from Robin King.
Oh, hey, cool.
Yeah. And he says, "Hey, Roy, you there?"
He replies, "I'm here."
Oh, hey man, I know it's been a long time since I messaged you, but things have been, crazy on my end, man. Like Harrison has been teaching me so much. They wouldn't let me communicate with the outside for a while. And at first I thought, that was creepy, but I understood that they've got enemies. It feels like we've all got enemies these days. And anyway, I called my mom, and she's fine. And I'm calling you to see how you are, man.
So he texts back, "Hanging in there," and then he texts, "I'm really glad you're doing well."
Yeah. And just out of character for a moment, if you want to either role play you texting him about what happened to you, or if you want to just shorthand, like I fill him in on all the crap that's happened since we parted ways, that's up to you.
Okay, I gotcha. Probably not. Roy probably wouldn't put that on Robin. Robin's kind of got his own thing going on, and
right on. Okay.
Yeah.
So back to in character, Robin tells you, yeah, it's crazy. I'm learning to control my power, which really apparently is all about controlling my emotions. And I've told Harrison, over and over, like, I want to help. I want to not only put right what I think I have turned wrong, but I just want to help people in general. I mean, man, I know it's only been a few months, but I am realizing how up my ass I was, just I made myself the victim, and people got hurt, you especially, because of it. And after all you did for me, he kind of trails off. He's like meandering all over the place, this text, but his whole synopsis is, Roy, I owe you one, and I'm going to find a way to get these abilities under control, and I'm going to help you out. Even if I just put a permanent lock on my powers somehow, which honestly I wish I could do. Having this responsibility is almost more than I can handle, and I just wish, I'd rather be normal than have to worry about turning someone into a frog or something.
Yeah. Well, so Roy and texting back, I guess we can kind of shorthand the conversation if you want.
Sure. It's up to you.
But
how much?
Roy basically he texts back that Robin doesn't owe him anything. You don't have to pay back gifts. That's sort of the point of gifts. And that if Robin does have a responsibility here, it's to himself, to make sure that whatever decision he makes, whether it's to go for a normal life and try to, else all his, abilities and everything, or whether it's to embrace it, and find, a way to use those powers for something, or somewhere in between, even if it's, not for a greater purpose, even if it's just, fulfilling using the powers to help fulfill the goals that, that he wants, the things that, he thinks will make his life better. That's the responsibility that he has. Not to be, burdened by a debt that, Roy absolutely does not hold him to.
Mm. Well, Robin, thanks him, and he says, Roy, I always feel better and centered when I talk to you, man. You say that I don't owe you anything, but I can never repay you for all you've done for me. But, I will try to be better, always. And if you ever need me, man, please, don't hesitate to ask.
Roy texts back. Just if they ever let you out, come by and we'll have lunch or something.
He says he thinks that Harrison is going to let him travel soon, and he doesn't want you to get the wrong idea of Harrison, that he's some sort of like crazed taskmaster or anything.
Roy's impression of Harrison is that, Harrison certainly knows more about this whole mage side of things than Roy does, but the feel, Roy's, whether or not it's been reflected mechanically necessarily so far, Roy has got a sense for people. I guess he seems to pick up first impressions off people fairly well. And the impression that he's got is that Harrison's somebody that can be trusted. So, like, if Harrison wants, Robin kind of just stay close to home, as it were, and hey, focus on your studies for right now, that sort of thing, Roy's probably going to back that up. Like, hey, do what he says.
You're pretty on the nose. Harrison's whole thing is like, you will learn to cast lightning with your eyes closed. It's not like that. It's like, and it's not like this cultish, like, your family and friends don't want what's best for you. I want what's best for you. It's definitely a straightforward, hey, buddy, you're a cool guy, and you've got your whole life ahead of you, and I want you to live your life, but you're also a human hurricane, and we need to bring you down.
Yeah, I got the sense that Harrison is kind of a not British and kind of silly Dumbledore.
Yeah.
He's very mentor-like, is the feel that I got off of this.
And while he may feel that way about Harrison, given your limited interactions with him, especially while Robin was working for you at No Man Left Behind, you get the distinct feeling that Robin is probably projecting onto you like the father figure he never had.
Yeah.
So that's just something
that sense
to keep in mind.
Yeah. Well, Roy's not discouraging that so much as he's trying to do what I think a good father figure should do, in that it's not about, I'm going to lead you or do what I say. It's about, I'm going to help you find your own path. I think that's sort of what fathers and sons should do. And Roy, he had an absentee father. So he's trying to be better than his dad who wasn't around, that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Okay. So you get off the phone with Robin, and then you walk into the living room or just a different part of the house, and you find Vandal on the couch snoring, which is a little odd because, like, hey, I got to take this text, and then all of a sudden, out like a light. And you're just like, he's been having a rough go of it lately. So
yeah, he's been a little on and off. So yeah, Roy gets a I don't know, a little throw blanket or something and puts it under him. Does the house mom thing.
Yeah. Not too terribly long after that, maybe you're cooking a meal or, cleaning up part of the house or something. You get another text, and this one is from Travis.
Oh, hey, cool.
Yeah. He says, hey, man, just checking in on you, seeing how you're doing.
Hanging in there. Better than you saw me last. How are you doing?
I've moved on from, well, I haven't moved on exactly. Kind of sticking close to Gainesville at the moment. You could say that my current base of operations is there. Because, and this is odd, but the reason I did that is because the activity that brought me there in the first place has pretty much dropped off the map. I mean, our friends the wolves are still there, but I stress our friends because they want what we want, and honestly, they're pretty cool people.
Yeah, I mean, they certainly helped.
Yeah.
From what I understand, I guess.
Yeah. Travis filled you in on like his. I mean, he was pretty much there with your group the whole time, so he filled you in on what the wolves told them, what happened at the protest, what happened in the hospital, all that good stuff.
Right. Yeah.
So he goes on to tell you that it's there were a few more rots after you left, but it was like they were just stragglers or something. And there was one moment where I thought maybe I had found a lead as to somebody who was part of the network that was running the show down here. And he tells you I followed up on the Mycanopy middle school thing, and I went to the middle school and I tried to pass myself off as a parent who was thinking about enrolling his kid there. And I went through and did the meet the teachers, meet the staff kind of thing. And I flipped on the second site, and nobody appeared abnormal. I couldn't find anything. I put Rena onto it, to do some research. And there were some people who left, the school to go seek other job opportunities, and I tried to follow up with them, but none of those turned up anything. I similarly went up and down the hospital where you were staying, and I tried to find anything out of the ordinary, and turned up nothing. And I spent a month just scouring the town for any sign of somebody who was connected to what was going on that night. And I'm so sorry, man. I've got just about diddly squat.
Roy texts back, it's okay. Whoever was behind this had planned it, and there was. I mean, this took everybody by surprise. So it's not something that I would expect that we could just scramble and uncover. I think it seems like from everything that I understand, we did the best we could with what we have, and we just need to, I guess, see what comes from here, and see what we can find out in sort of the long haul. Yeah. Basically, he's saying, don't worry about it. You don't owe me any apologies, man.
He texts you back, yeah, and he says, Rena and I have a working theory, and it's just a theory, but it would match up with everything that we know so far. Someone wanted to obviously take advantage of the, you know, I've heard them called nodes. The wolves call them. I'm sorry, I'm blanking out of character right now. Uh, the wolves call fucking they build something around them, and they're septs. The wolves call them septs.
Okay.
Yeah, but these doorways that are strong, kind of gates between this world and the next. Um, Someone wanted to take advantage of that to bring a large volume of spirits over, which is interesting
Hmm.
because these places, I've learned a lot since, talking with people who have a lot of experience with these sort of things since I last checked in with you. And from what I can gather, these things are huge sources of power in and of themselves. And I also did a lot of digging into AEC, which is the company that started this whole mess in the first place, just by wanting to dig for oil.
Right.
Um, but then it occurred to me, if you go to AEC's website, they they're into like all kinds of energy projects. They've got a geothermal tapping station up in Montana. They, a lot of people say that this was a publicity stunt to cover up that oil spill they were involved with last year. Oh, and by the way, a little bit of lore in universe for you.
Sure.
The I have decided to this world's version of the Deepwater Horizon event was not
Okay.
in 2010. It was in 20. I guess at this point let's call it 2016. Um, and it was it was AEC's module, I guess you could call it. And yeah, I'm gonna call it the Clearwater Future.
Okay.
I mean, yeah,
Sure. Yeah.
probably a better name for it, but whatever. So that suffered a similar explosion, and a lot. Only the difference is like a lot more people were actually killed in the event itself. And yes, they spilled a similar amount of oil into the Gulf of Mexico. And they launched that campaign very similar to the BP ads that we saw way back when. It's like,
Sure.
hey, we're cleaning up our mess and giving all kinds of restitution to people who own shrimp restaurants on the coast.
Right. Yeah. We're working for a better future. Please don't sue us.
Yeah.
Right.
So their whole thing was, they would go to different towns along the coast. And it's like, today we're in Biloxi. Today we're in New Orleans. Today we're in Gulfport, Mississippi. Or today we're helping Gulfport. Tomorrow, the world. And there was this whole
Right.
campaign like Tomorrow, the World. Um, anyway, so that's your lore lesson. Is
Okay.
A caused that, and not only that. So you go to their website, and they're into all these things, and you thought it was a publicity stunt to make up for that oil spill, but their whole mobile solar panel platform that they're pushing out into the ocean or into the Gulf next month, that it's all just about trying to get a monopoly on the energy market. And they're being sued left and right from people, antitrust watch groups, but so far they've managed to evade everything. And then it occurred to me, and I'm trying really hard not to be all Pepe Sylvia, conspiracy guy here, but I'm wondering if that was the reason AEC was there in the first place. Maybe there was oil down there, maybe there wasn't. Maybe what they were really trying to tap into was that node, because
Right.
God only knows how much power they could have sucked from that thing. And and yeah, the obvious response to that is, how would AEC know about the supernatural side of things? And that's normally where my theory would fall apart. But, I did some digging on HunterNet, and I asked questions to a couple of the other communities that I have contacts in, and they can't prove anything conclusively, but none of them have anything good to say about AEC. And they are under the impression that at least a few people in AEC are either working with or under the influence of certain supernatural entities. And plus, there was Mark Lansky, who was clearly into something. I mean, he was one of their execs. So, it's possible.
Right.
So there's that. And then this isn't, a solid theory or anything, but the network of people who were involved in your abduction and who maybe worked for the hospital, maybe worked for the middle school, or just had anything to do with the whole Gainesville undead presence. And let's not forget all of the zombie cop sightings in North Florida over the past few months.
Right.
Rena and I think that this is a network of sorts. It is organized. And when we started to get close to the truth and, uncovering a link that might tell us more, we think people were intentionally transferred, fired, rehired into different parts of the state, or possibly even different parts of the whole southeastern United States, because we get close to someone and they inexplicably move, and there's no, we can't find them. There's no definite paper trail. It's the only evidence really that I have that something is up is every time I get close to something, the pieces get shuffled around. So I don't know if these guys, there a few minutes goes by before he texts you the next part of his message, which is, I know that whoever this is threatened you all severely, but if they were in a position to make a show of force, I think they would have done so by now. I can't prove it, but I think we've got them scrambling. And
that's, yeah, Roy texts back that he he's filled Travis in certainly on all the details of his interrogation and like what the questions were and the video of the what, the IHOP or the diner.
Yeah, I hope.
And like the, hey, we're going to kill your friends if you don't, that sort of thing. So he's filled him in on all that when they first met in the hospital. And yeah, like the reason, one of the reasons anyway, that Roy clammed up, because at the very beginning he kind of wanted to see if he could draw something out of the interrogator, but then pretty immediately, just stopped responding. And it's because he kind of realized that if you're having to torture someone for information as basic as like how many of you are there, like that sort of thing, then all of the advantage in the situation, despite the ability of them to kill you, all of the advantage of the situation is yours because you have all the information that's needed. So like, even if he had died there, they wouldn't know what they're facing. So like he kind of sees all of this, and like obviously there was a cost to everything, but he kind of sees it all as ultimately being a win, for it, and that their main strength here is, even though whenever Travis is starting to get close, they shuffle the pieces around, and it seems like kind of use the veil of whatever infrastructure they have to keep too many leads from being pursued. On the other side of the coin, the advantage that the group and the hunters and maybe this sort of larger, I don't want to say network, but like HunterNet and the larger community, I guess is the best word of hunters.
Yeah.
The main advantage that they have is that whatever information these people have doesn't include things that would yet breach. I'm trying to think of a better term than like the tactical anonymity of the hunter community. Like they don't know who's going to come for them. They can react really well and shuffle things around, but they don't actually know what they're facing. They can find out who they're facing and find out all sorts of information, but they don't know the hunters as a group, as a community, as a force, I guess.
Right.
And so that's sort of a strategic advantage that they actually have right now. So yeah, that's where he's coming from.
Cool. Travis concurs with all of that, and he says, obviously, I'll keep you posted on anything that I find. What about?
Yeah, definitely. And Roy offers, if there's anything you need, man, if you need a place, I got a spare bedroom, I got a couch. I mean, the couch isn't used right now, but I mean, you're always welcome.
Thank you, Roy. Look, what happened to you, I can't ever forget about that. I asked you guys for help and you responded, and I have this thing where people who get involved with me tend to get hurt, very badly hurt, and I don't want to get your hopes up needlessly, but we live in a world of shapeshifters and magicians and frankly the impossible. And I've heard stories on HunterNet of people being miraculously healed. I mean, your injuries probably would have been a lot worse if Vandal hadn't done his mojo on you. My point is, there's got to be a way to get your voice back. And when I'm not looking into this network, I promise I'll be looking into that. I'm gonna find you a way to give you back what was stolen from you.
So Roy thanks him for sure, but he also says that everybody, what he's learned throughout all of this, is that everybody is carrying something. Everybody has their own sort of their own burden they're carrying, and it's always sort of a burden that's assumed that you're always choosing what you take on, because really anybody here could walk away. He's learned that firsthand with Graham, because Graham did walk away. But every hunter, and not even hunters, everybody is carrying some amount of weight, and what Roy doesn't want to do is put any more burden on Travis, because Roy's kind of realizing that a lot of his role is not carrying burdens for other people, but helping people carry their burden. So it might be good for now for him to maybe take some time to listen more than he talks. And so there's a way of looking at all of this that this could be a blessing or opportunity in disguise. So thank you, and certainly, and if if he finds anything out or comes up with anything, absolutely, but don't put himself at risk. Don't that sort of thing. Don't go to any sort of extreme length, because it'll work itself out one way or the other. And if he's not meant to get his voice back, then that's the plan. And he's at the point where he's leaving it up to a higher power than himself. So
Okay. Travis says, stay strong, and I'll contact you when I have more information. And then he signs off.
Cool.
Yep.
I mean, Roy, he's probably at this point in these conversations, cooked up dinner, I would imagine. So he's going to check on Vandal.
Right.
And if Vandal's, okay, nothing, I don't know, he's not having a nightmare or something. Visibly,
out of character,
sure.
Dan, I think, is like we've discussed stuff I can and cannot do with his character up to this point. So yeah. Okay. So if you rouse him,
yeah.
If you rouse him, he's just like, when did I fall asleep?
Okay. Yeah. I mean, that's what I was going to do. Basically, like, hey, dinner's ready. If you want to eat, soup's on, that sort of thing.
He nods, and he looks at his phone, very confused, and he just like shakes his head, like, I don't remember falling asleep. That's weird. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, Roy lets him know when he found him. Anyway, he talked with Robin and then stepped out and found him asleep.
He asks how Robin is, or if he's in trouble or anything.
Well, shakes his head now. A lot of this, I'm sure, is typing out and then showing.
Yeah.
But yeah, he lets him know he's doing all right. Kid's okay.
Okay. And he joins you for dinner.
It's what's a good? It's like spaghetti and meatballs. Let's just make it super straight up like that.
Cool. Okay. So about you. I'm trying to think. Okay. Vandal, through his chewing, lets you know. I don't think I told you this, but when you were still in the hospital, and right after Barry and Paul kind of chewed us out. I mean, just him and me. This is before the three of us had our little meeting with them. I punched Graham out. He explained to me that this was the best. This might have been the best possible outcome. That we were all still alive. I mean, it could have been a lot worse, he said. And he had to put this all behind him. He never wanted to be out in the field, as it were, and he just wanted to focus on his bar and, come up with his ideas. He wants to, stay on HunterNet and collate data and come up with theories and conspiracies and what have you, and he wants to provide a safe haven for hunters. Fine. But when he said it could have been worse or this might be the best possible outcome, I lost my head and I just decked him. And so if I was being particularly icy towards him when the three of us were meeting with Barry and Paul, that's why I haven't really spoken to him since.
So Roy nods understandingly. And he, types out that there aren't a whole lot of hunters around, and whether something is, whether it was the best possible scenario or anything, you could go around and around on that. It's what happened, and the outcome did see everyone alive, and so it's not about if it was good or not. It's, is there good in it? And the good in it is we're all here and we're having a spaghetti dinner, and you're out of the house, and things are getting better, because there's always going to be crises and dark times, and it's whether or not things get better. And Roy offers that he thinks Vandal should maybe not apologize to Graham, but don't burn the bridge totally, because there aren't a whole lot of us, and he'd like to see them stay connected in some way. But he also changes the topic off of that, because that's, leave that and just sort of let that sit, and what Vandal does with it is up to him. But he asks who Molly is, because Vandal's mentioned Molly in sort of his drunken states, and kind of when he's asleep he said the name, and Roy hasn't been pressing him, but I mean, he is curious, and it's a good way to segue the conversation to something else.
So,
and he definitely leaves the door open, like he does the, hey, if it's any of my business, who's Molly, like that sort of thing. So there's an out if Vandal doesn't want to talk about it.
You got me in, like, this is one of those things where it is important to the game and it is important to the story, and it's going to be revealed, but Dan might want to tell this story in his own words, and I'm not entirely certain if this topic is off limits, and I'm hoping Dan is reading his messenger and will hit me back real quick.
No problem.
I'm gonna be honest, like, I keep going through it in my head, and we've really brought Roy up to speed here. And so, aside from the Molly thing, is there anything Roy wants to know more about, or Roy wants to do, or maybe we can, like, flashback a little to before this night, and maybe there was something we didn't cover in the narrative that you started out with that Roy wanted to delve more deeply into? Because Robin contacted you, and that was important. Travis contacted you, and that was important. And when Becky contacts you, that's the start of the next game. There's a few things you can look into on HunterNet that we could talk about here, but then there's a few things on HunterNet that would also be like, all right, it's game time. So,
Well, so where Roy's coming from here is his main concern at the moment is kind of, I mean, I've been using the term in sort of our other conversations of getting the band back together. But it's more he's trying to bring everybody else back because Hank and his family basically were the support structure that got Roy back. And so Roy is now trying to be that for Vandal, obviously, because he's right here, but Becky sort of at a distance, and they haven't talked, and he's kind of been doing the one way, hey, we're still here, kind of pinging at her. So he's certainly the information about this potential larger conspiracy and all of that. The conversation with Travis is certainly something that he's thinking about, but it's not his main concern. His main concern is the people he's close to.
So his main concern is getting Becky back together?
Well, sort of. His main concern is making sure that Becky's okay. And he's best able to do that when people are close by, or when he can be close by people. Like I mean, it sounds weird to say now that he doesn't have a voice, but like he can take care of people best when he can sit down and talk with them.
Right.
So it's more he's trying to like reopen lines of communication and make sure she's not on some self-destructive thing. I mean, you kind of hit it with Robin. He's kind of being dad to this these couple people, this group, or trying to kind of be that dad guy for them.
Right.
But that's his main concern. So like probably he wouldn't be looking up researching more information on HunterNet about this stuff. A little bit behind the curtain, because I know that's going to be the main game stuff, and so I don't want to jump into that yet, because I'll jump into it. So no, like if he senses Vandal maybe is even a little reluctant to like talk about Molly, like he'll let it go and change it to something else. How do you like the food, or call the dogs over or something. So yeah, he's more caretaking at the moment. So I'm not sure really there's anything else that like you would need to go and research and find out and check into. I mean, unless there's anything that he should, but that might be a little bit too.
Because like I said,
behind the curtain.
There's certain things that might even be Roy centric or Roy driven, but I cannot get into those things right now because they involve too many other moving parts, and when I say moving parts, I mean other people. So
right, yeah. So no, I think this is probably fine.
Okay, then can I ask who does that gravestone belong to?
That's his mom.
Okay.
Yeah, that was his mom. Because she died. This was in that backstory stuff I sent you, but because she, with the absentee father, I mean, she took care of him and definitely raised him, to be a spiritual person. And then when she died, I mean, he was her only child, so he was the one who took care of all of her funeral arrangements. And so he hasn't really been doing it since starting the hunt, but he used to at least go and visit her grave and do the hey mom, I've been doing well, and not the flowers on the grave, but that sort of people go and have conversations with their departed loved ones, and so that was him kind of coming back into it, and hey, I'm going to take care of people like you took care of me, that sort of thing.
I got you.
Sort of an affirmation.
All right. So I'll get to one other thing before we close off this narrative, and I want to I'd rather go over any character sheet updates you've made now as opposed to the start of the first group session.
Sure.
I don't want to drag anything down. This is interesting. Dan just got back to me.
Oh, okay.
And what he says is this. When you mention the name Molly, he looks puzzled for a moment, and he says, I have no earthly idea who that is.
Roy reassures him it must have just been a bad dream, and he takes note of it.
Vandal, nods his head like, sure, yeah. Okay. And then you each simultaneously get a text. And you look at each other, and because you both know it's a group text and you're both in on it.
Right.
And you look at each other that way because, like, it's from Becky.
Dun, dun, dun.
Becky's back.
Becky's back. That should be like an 80s song.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely should be.
Nice. I like it.
Not around already. All right. This has been a Hot Nights, Hot Lead special Roy-centric episode. Thank you for joining us. Okay. I'm going to stop broadcast now.